Debbie can speak. Debbie Veal. I see she just dropped off again, possibly. Maybe she's having some technical difficulties.
I
So,
think yes, I think she is. This is a moderator. I will see if she comes back into our attendee list.
okay. I think we can get started and we can just bring her back in. So I'm sure it won't be too long until. So let's get started. Waiting to see. Oh, she's back on there if you want to try. Tricia. I'll just give you a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and Board Member Veal, can you do a mic check?
Can you hear me this time?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Debbie.
Hello.
All right, let's get started. Welcome to the March 16th, 2022 board meeting. My name is Sang-Oh, President of the board. Before I begin the meeting, I would like to welcome our newest board member, Indira Cameron Banks. We are excited to have you on the board and looking forward to working with you. I would like to remind everyone present that the board is a consumer protection agency charged with administering and enforcing pharmacy law where protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted. The protection of the public shall be paramount. This meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Government Code Section 11133, extended by the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-1-22. Participants watching this webcast will only be able to observe the meeting. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. As I facilitate this meeting, I will announce when we're accepting public comment. I have advised the meeting moderator to allot 2 minutes to each individual providing comments. This approach is necessary to facilitate this meeting. Before we get started, I would like to ask staff moderating the meeting to provide general instructions. Moderator?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Before we get started, I'd just like to remind the board members and meeting participants that if you are not speaking, please keep your microphone muted. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder or simply mute your microphone. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature, also referred to as the Q&A. When the board president reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, public comment will be requested, and at the board's direction, I will turn on and announce the opening of the question and answer feature. Please note the question and answer feature is only being used as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. Once given permission to unmute, the member of the public may unmute themselves and verbally state their comment. The question and answer feature is not to be used for typing out questions or for the board members to communicate with one another. If any attendee uses profane language, they will not be called upon, or a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subjected to profane language. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. And with that, I return the floor back over to you, Mr. Board President.
Thank you, Tricia. I would like to take a roll call to establish a quorum. Members, as I call your name, please remember to open your line before speaking. Also, a reminder, we're not doing cameras yet. We will do that during the petitioner hearing. Starting with Maria Serpa.
Licensee member present.
Hi, Maria. Cheryl Butler. Oh, sorry, Jake Patel. Sorry, I just jumped.
Present.
Jake Patel. Hi, Jake. Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Here.
Thank you, Cheryl. Indira Cameron Banks.
Present.
Good morning. Jose de la Paz.
Present.
Good morning. Shirley Kim. I believe Shirley is not joining us today. Kula Koenig. I think Kula is also not joining today. Ricardo Sanchez.
Here, present.
Good morning, Ricardo.
Good morning.
Nicole Tebow.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nicole. Debbie Veal.
I'm here.
Good morning, Debbie. Jason Wise.
Good morning, Sang.
Good morning, Jason. Okay, and I am here. The quorum has been established. Members, we have a full agenda today. I truly appreciate all of your time and commitment to the board and California consumers. I ask everyone participating today to be respectful of the work before the board today. And we encourage participation by members of the public throughout our meetings at appropriate times. The board respectfully requests that when comments are provided, they are done so in a professional manner, consistent with how the board conducts its business. I will now ask the moderator to open the line for individuals to provide the opportunity to provide public comment. You're not required to identify yourself, but may do so. As we open the lines, I would like to remind everyone that the board cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place an item on a future agenda. Following review of the public comments for this agenda item, I will ask members to comment on what, if any, items should be placed on a future agenda. As a reminder, this agenda item is not intended to be a discussion, rather an opportunity for members of the board and members of the public to request consideration of an item for future placement on an agenda, at which time discussion may occur. Moderator, please open the line for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. If any member of the public has an item that is not listed on the agenda that they wish to speak about or comment about, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I am seeing no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, shall I close the Q&A panel?
Trisha, I see someone named Dwayne raised hand. I'm not sure.
Okay, I saw that too, but then I thought he put it down, but we can check and make sure.
Yeah, let's just make sure.
Yes. All right. Dwayne, you should be able to unmute yourself. And
Oh,
did you have a
yes.
comment?
I have a comment regarding the wholesaler self-assessment document that's being reviewed. That's today on the board meeting. There are 3 areas which basically need to be addressed, and I think the board should be aware of those areas. The first
Dwayne,
area,
I'm
I think.
sorry,
All right.
Dwayne, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you, this is a little out of order, so if you'd like to comment on that, do you mind waiting till agenda item 3? Unless you have any other
Okay,
comments.
I'll wait for
Yeah.
agenda item 3, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
All right. And I see that Sandy Vervey has her hand up. So Sandy, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, Sandy, you're unmuted.
I have a question regarding, I see that there's new laws regarding the 3PL permit for that now 3PLs are able to get a license in California if they are not, if they do not have a home state license, of a 3PL home state license, if they are willing to have an inspector come out from California, or if they are board accredited. I wanted to see if the applications will be updated soon to reflect that information, because I don't see that the 3PL applications have been updated yet.
All right. And then that's the end of request for comment. And then for petitioners, you are in the right meeting. You'll be promoted to panelists closer to your agenda item. So please know that we will be including you later in this meeting. And Mr. Board President, that's the end of requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you, Trisha.
You're welcome.
All right. Members having received public comment, I will ask members if they would like to include any item on a future agenda. Please raise your hand to speak if you'd like to. Again, please remember to open your line when before speaking. Maria, go ahead.
I have a question for staff regarding the public comment. Is the item that she mentioned on an upcoming agenda, or should we agendize it?
This is Anne. If it's okay, Eileen, I'll go ahead and respond. I would recommend that the individual reach out to myself or Debbie Mitchell, who's the Senior Licensing Manager. I don't believe it requires board action. It's an administrative function to update the forms to conform with new changes in pharmacy law.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comment, Maria. Any other member comments? All right, seeing no hand raised, we're going to move right along to agenda item 3, discussion and consideration of approved regulation, Title 16, California Coda Regulations, Section 1784, Wholesaler, Dangerous Drugs and Devices Self-Assessment Forms, including comments received. Members, as you may recall, as part of the January board meeting, the board considered changes to the wholesaler assessment form and voted to make additional amendments to the proposed form to reflect recent changes in pharmacy law and notice those changes for a 15-day comment period. Included in the meeting materials are the comments received, staff recommendations to the comments received, the revised form, and regulation language. I trust you have had an opportunity to review the meeting materials. I've reviewed and agreed with staff recommendations. Members, I would appreciate your comments and would also entertain a motion. I note that a possible motion is included in the meeting materials and displayed on the slide. Anyone with comments or willing to make a motion, please raise your hand. And any comments from members or anyone willing to make a motion?
So I'm willing to make a motion. I'm having a little bit of problems with my clicker, but so I can't raise my hand.
I'll second that.
Oh,
So
thank you,
I'll second it.
Ricardo.
Yeah, I'll make the motion as it's on the screen.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Any other member comments? Okay. No, hearing none. Moving on. Thank you, moderator. Please open the line for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I'm opening up the Q&A feature, and if any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 3, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and Dwayne, I see your hand is up. So again, this is for agenda item 3 that we're receiving comments on, and you'll have 2 minutes. So Dwayne?
Yes,
Okay.
there's 3 items on these, on item 3 that should be addressed by the board. Number 1 is NAP does not issue accreditation certificates anymore. It's now drug distributor accreditation, and there's no number on the certificate that's issued by NABP. So having that on the wholesale self-assessment form would not be logical. The second thing is that on the self-assessment, basically the request for the list of employees that have access to the prescription drug area. In a wholesale operation, you're talking about a building the size of football fields, and almost every single person that works in the wholesale operation would have access. So that's not really practical. Basically, you're having a list of personnel that have access to keys after hours, or a list of personnel that have access to controlled substance cage area would be more practical. The number 3 area was basically on receiving of or shipments to be received either by the DR or by the pharmacist itself is, again, not practical when you're talking about wholesale operation that has 100 receiving dock doors, and basically receiving more than 50 shipments per day at 16 hours a day. This is not practical. So basically that needs to be revised to be addressed either by receiving team that's been trained or supervised by the DR or pharmacist. I thank you very much for the board's time.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
Okay, with a motion and second and public comment received, I will call for the vote, and but I'll pause a little bit to see if members have any comments. Okay, all right.
Well, I only have one comment. I believe in our materials, all three of those questions or comments are addressed by our staff. So it's not that we are ignoring the individual, but that we have that they have been addressed, and it's stated in the materials.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Debbie. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, we're going to go for the vote. Maria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Maria. Jake?
Yes.
Thank you, Jake. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you, Cheryl. Indira?
Yes.
Thank you, Indira. Jose?
Yes.
Thank you, Jose. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you, Ricardo. Nicole?
Yes.
Thank you, Nicole. Debbie?
Yes.
Thank you, Debbie. Jason?
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. And I vote yes, the motion passes. Moving along to agenda item 4, discussion and consideration of approved regulations, Title 16, California Code of Regulations, Section 1715, Community Pharmacy Self-Assessment and Hospital Self-Assessment Forms, including comments received. Similar to the last agenda item, the board also considered changes to the Community Pharmacy Self-Assessment and Hospital Self-Assessment during the January meeting. At that time, the board voted to amend these forms and initiate a 15-day comment period. Included in the meeting materials are those comments received, staff recommendations to the comments received, the revised forms, and regulation language. I trust you had an opportunity to review the meeting materials, and I agree with staff recommendations. Members, I appreciate your comments and would also entertain a motion. I note that a possible motion is included in the meeting materials and displayed on the slide. Anyone with any comments or willing to make a motion, please raise your hand. Or I can see your hand raised now, Debbie, so go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I finally got my act together here.
Thank you.
I think that the staff, we only received one comment. It appeared that the staff, I agree with the response to the comment that the staff made. So with that, I would like to propose the adoption language that is, on the screen for this agenda item.
Thank you, Debbie.
And this is Cheryl. I will second.
Thank you, Cheryl. Debbie motions, Cheryl seconds. Any other member comments? Okay, moderator, please open the line for public comment on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I am opening up the Q&A panel. And if any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. And we do see that John Gray has a comment. John, just a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes. I'll give you a 10-second warning. And John, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right,
Good
you're
morning.
unmuted.
This is John Gray. I'm a registered pharmacist with Kaiser Permanente. I want to start by helping the board understand our concern with the board's decision to establish the requirement that a hospital without an ADDS license that operates ADDS devices must complete the ADDS self-assessment. I personally went through the exercise of completing the most recent draft self-assessment as though I were doing it as a hospital PIC with unlicensed ADDS devices. Of the 30-some questions that need to be completed in this situation, half were answered not applicable. Of the remaining questions that were not marked not applicable, the majority were related to the mechanics of completing the self-assessment. For example, there's a question that asks whether the PIC has responded to every question in the self-assessment. In most cases, the board's self-assessments are useful tools to help PICs ensure compliance with law and regulation. In the case of a hospital pharmacy PIC that uses the AUDS devices that are exempt from licensure, I personally do not find the ADDS self-assessment to be particularly useful. The board continues to use BPC 4427.2I as its justification for requiring the ADDS self-assessment to be completed for non-licensed AUDS devices in the hospital setting. In its response to our comments, the board rightly points out that 4427.2I requires an unlicensed AUDS to comply with all other requirements for an ADDS in Article 25. The provision in 4427.7A that establishes the requirement for an ADDS self-assessment to be completed is predicated on the pharmacy holding an ADDS license. Therefore, a hospital pharmacy that operates AUDS devices and does not hold an ADDS license is complying with that portion of Article 25 when it does not complete the ADDS self-assessment. We continue to believe that establishing a requirement in regulation that a pharmacy that does not hold an ADDS license must complete the ADDS self-assessment conflicts with the underlying statute,
10
Business and
seconds.
Provisions Code 4427.7A, and should not be advanced by the board today. Thank you again for the opportunity to comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and I see no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, any member comments or thoughts before we go for the vote? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go for the vote. All right, Maria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Maria. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you, Jig. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you, Cheryl. Indira?
Yes.
Thank you, Indira. Jose?
Yes.
Thank you, Jose. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you, Ricardo. Nicole?
Yes.
Thank you, Nicole. Debbie?
Yes.
Thank you, Debbie. Jason?
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. And I vote yes, the motion passes. All right, moving along to agenda item 5, discussion and consideration of adoption of board-approved regulations, Title 16, California Code of Regulations, Section 1715.65, inventory reconciliation, including comments received. Next for our consideration is adoption of the board's regulation, Section 1715.65, related to inventory reconciliation. I trust you had an opportunity to review the meeting materials. The materials include the proposed text release for the second 15-day comment period, consistent with the action taken during the January board meeting. The meeting materials also include comments received and staff recommendation. As a quick note, I'd like to remind members that as part of prior action taken by the board, the effective date of this regulation will be January 1st, 2023. Providing the regulated public time to implement these changes. After review and consideration of the materials, I agree with the staff's recommendation and would appreciate member comments. I note that the meeting slide include a possible motion. Anyone with comments or willing to make a motion, please raise your hand. And I see Maria's hand is raised. This has been a long journey coming for this item. So Maria, go ahead.
Thank you, President. Oh, yeah, that's exactly my comments I wanted to thank the board staff and members of the public for their comments and responses to the comments. This has been years in discussion, and this was in discussion both at the board and at the enforcement committee, even before my tenure on the enforcement committee. Just to clarify with everyone, or just to notify everyone, especially our newest members and members of the public, this regulation is to clarify the previous regulation and to codify previous FAQs regarding automated dispensing systems. I know that some sites have already been doing this process. I personally have started this audit in my previous workplace some time ago and have trained others on how to do it. My previous workplace has 102 Pyxis machines, and we do this audit every month. The regulation calls for quarterly, but we found that every month makes it a much smaller audit and to be able to deal with inconsistencies quickly rather than waiting a significant period of time. So again, the requirement and the proposed regulation is quarterly, and I totally support that. So I would move for the motion as shown on the screen.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the comment. And thank you so much for working hard and diligently on this regulation. Debbie?
I'd like to second Maria's motion and appreciate the comments that she made.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay, with the motion and second, any other member comments or thoughts? Okay, hearing none. Moderator, please open a line for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I am opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on Agenda Item 5, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions. And just a gentle reminder to meeting participants, if you are not currently speaking, please make sure that your microphone is muted, and that will assure that the sound quality of this meeting is good. Thank you. All right, I am seeing no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you, please. Thank you, moderator. I think we tired
Welcome.
everyone out with this regulation package.
Yes.
All right, with a motion and second and public comment received, we're going to go for the vote. Maria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Maria. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you, Jig. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you, Cheryl. Indira?
Yes.
Thank you, Indira. Jose?
Yes.
Thank you, Jose. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you, Ricardo. Nicole?
Yes.
Thank you, Nicole. Debbie?
Yes.
Thank you, Debbie. Jason?
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. And I vote yes, the motion passes. Okay, moving on finally to the petitioner hearings here. We're gonna turn on our videos, and I suggest we take 10-minute break so that everyone can be situated. Let me just make sure we have everyone on here. While we get situated, members, you have we'll come back at 9:40 for everyone with their cameras on. And until then, we'll take a break. And everyone else, please make sure the petitioners, please, your microphone is working, your video is working, and your attorneys are present. And let's make sure. Maria, I think your hand is still raised. Do you need something? Okay. Let's make sure everyone's ready. And then also, are we doing in the order? What order are we doing? I think Judge Wong. Your Honor, do we have any specific order? Are we going?
Mr. President, I was going to ask you if there was a particular order you wanted me to go, or otherwise I would call them in the order listed on the agenda.
Okay, that's probably okay, unless I don't know if Susan or Debbie Ann or Eileen, do we have any plans for the specific order of presentation hearing today?
This is Eileen, President. I think we generally just defer to how the judge wants to handle it, or you. Sometimes they may take things out of order if somebody has counsel, but that's within your discretion to do it either as noticed or to make other arrangements.
Okay, sounds good. So let's just go with how the agenda is agendized. So that would mean I think we're starting with partner healthcare. So we will start there and make sure everybody's cameras and microphones are good. And we'll be back at 9:40. So we'll see you guys then.
All right, this is the moderator, and I just want to check with the petitioners to make sure people's mics work. So I am not seeing Donald Toombs yet.
This is Tony Park. I'm here and just want to make sure that you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much. And Vishal, can you do a mic check for us?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Kent. I just wanted to do a mic check and video check.
Excellent. Yes, Ken, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Ami Huang. I'm doing the video and mic check as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Moderator, just wanted to let you know that Mr. Brian Gardner, the third petitioner on the partner case, he'll be jumping on in just 1 second here.
Thank you. I do see him. I've just promoted him. It looks like he needs to connect his audio. And Vishal, I'm going to temporarily put you back as an attendee. We've done a mic check with you, and then we'll promote you closer to when we get to your part of this. And then Brian, we can see you if you want to do a quick mic check as well. Okay, so Brian, we can see your lips moving, but we're not hearing you. So you might want to go to the icon next to your mic, click on the drop-down button and select settings and increase your input and output. Another option would be to go to the top of your screen, click on audio and video and select the call-in option. And this is the moderator. Amy, did we have a mic check from you? I just want to make sure.
Trisha, it's actually Ami, and I believe she did do a mic check. But
Oh, thank you.
yes, but I can have
Okay.
her. I'll text her right now to have her
Okay.
do it again. Maybe she.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, great. And then apparently Brian maybe can hear us, but we can't hear him. So he is struggling.
Yeah, Brian, you might want to call in. Looks like your mic is not working, or you have some issues. Can you call in?
So this is a moderator. I just put up the audio slide in case that can help people out if they need to connect their audio differently.
Okay, I think I'm in now. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Brian. Thank you so much.
Very good. I had to hang up and just call back in. I was already on the line verbally, but it didn't work. So anyway,
Yes.
we got it.
All right. And please, everyone, if you can just make sure you're muted if you're not currently speaking.
All right, I think most everyone's back, so I'm gonna start the roll call really quick. Okay, Maria, are you back?
I'm back. Thank you.
Hi, Maria. Jake?
I'm back.
Thank you, Jake. Cheryl? There's Cheryl.
Yes, I'm.
Indira? There she is. Okay. Jose, I see you.
Present.
Thank you, Jose. Ricardo? Saw you too. There you are.
I'm here.
Hi, Ricardo. Nicole?
Hello.
Hi, Nicole. Debbie? Saw you as well. There. Okay. And Jason. There's Jason. Hi, Jason. All right, and I'm here. All righty, Your Honor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. All right, let's go ahead and go on the record. So we are on the record before the California State Board of Pharmacy, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California, in the matter of the petition for reduction in penalty of Partner Healthcare, Inc. It's agency case number 6176. It's OAH number 2022-030-416. My name's Quorum Wong. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I have been assigned to preside over this matter sitting with the board. To establish a quorum of the board for the record, I request that each member respond audibly after his or her name is called. Mr. President?
I am here.
Madam Vice President?
Here.
Mr. Patel?
Here.
Ms. Butler?
Here.
Ms. Cameron Banks?
Here.
Mr. De La Paz?
Here.
Mr. Sanchez?
Here.
Dr. Tebow?
Here.
Ms. Veal?
Here.
And Mr. Weiss?
Here.
Thank you, and let the record reflect that a quorum of the board is present. Next, if I may take the appearances of counsel, starting with the Deputy Attorney General.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Deputy Attorney General Christina Jarvis, and I am appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General for the people of the state of California. My role is not adversarial, but it is intended to protect the public interest. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Tony Park. I'm here representing Petitioners Partners Healthcare, and specifically 3 of its corporate officers, Dr. Ken Tai, Dr. Brian Gardner, Dr. Ami Wong.
Good morning, Dr. Park. And if I saw the participants list correctly, I saw each of the individual present as well, correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, very good. Let's see. All right, so Dr. Park, I recognize you from prior hearings, so I won't go over the ground rules unless you have any questions. We'll just go right into the matter. Ms. Jarvis, if you would like to present your documents or provide your summary.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. We're hearing a little echo. I'm hoping that it can be.
Yes, this is the moderator. Several people have their microphones unmuted, and that's causing the echo.
Okay, let's see if this gets a little better. Ms. Jarvis, if you'd like to begin either presenting the petition packet or with your summary, whichever order you'd prefer.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm going to go ahead and start with a summary. As I summarize, I will be describing the Exhibit 1 of the petition packet, which I will then identify and move once I sort of finish that identification. So this is a little bit long. This was quite a process in this case. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of patience from everybody as they listen to all of this. And if at any point there is a question in regards to dates or specific facts, please do not hesitate when the time is appropriate. Okay, so this matter arose via an accusation which was filed on October 11th of 2017. This was then amended throughout the next 2 years until the final and operative version in this matter was the fourth amended accusation, which was filed on August 16th of 2019. The parties entered into a stipulated settlement agreement, which went before the board and was adopted and effective on December 3rd of 2019. This stipulated settlement provided for 5 years of probation with all standard terms and conditions of probation. The causes for discipline, which are deemed to be true and admitted in this proceeding, are failing to maintain effective control and security of dangerous drugs. Petitioner began to suspect that pharmacy technicians were stealing from the pharmacy in approximately November of 2014. In December of 2015, petitioner terminated the pharmacy technician it suspected of the theft. In February of 2016, petitioner reported the theft to the local police department. During this time period, petitioner's audits showed that approximately 1,775 bottles of promethazine with codeine and 76,263 tablets of alprazolam were stolen. Petitioner's PIC, pharmacist Chang, was also subject to disciplinary action for failing to maintain the effective control and security of dangerous drugs and controlled substances for these thefts. Petitioner failed to maintain or produce required records, and that they failed to have appropriate and thorough records or to provide them to the board for these thefts. Petitioner's PIC was subject to discipline for the same. Petitioner's PIC was subject to discipline for failing to exercise or implement his best professional judgment with regards to securing, dispensing, accounting for, and furnishing dangerous drugs and controlled substances. Specifically, there were essentially no security measures in place in this pharmacy, which the technician exploited in making his thefts. The alprazolam and the promethazine were on a shelf, they were not locked up, there were no cameras in the area, and there were no policies or procedures in place to prevent the technician from ordering controlled substances and then simply taking possession of those controlled substances upon delivery before they were ever logged into the pharmacy's records. And it is apparent that that is how the technician exercised some of these thefts. Petitioner was also disciplined for failing to notify the board in a timely manner of the loss of controlled substances. As referenced earlier, petitioner's owners knew that thefts were occurring in November of 2014, but failed to report the thefts to the board until January 4th of 2016. And again, petitioner's PIC was disciplined for the same. Petitioner also performed sterile compounding, so the following causes for discipline relate to sterile compounding activities. Petitioner had non-conforming dangerous drugs lacking quality and strength in their inventory. Specifically, 24 previously frozen piggybacks, known as PB 1 gram, were thawed and then labeled with a 60-day expiration date, when the manufacturer states that a 30-day expiration date is appropriate upon thawing. And again, the PIC was disciplined for the same. Petitioner failed to ensure compounding quality assurance, specifically failing to ensure the integrity, potency, quality, and labeled strength of dangerous drugs at least annually as required. Then the next causes for discipline, and each of these sort of sets of causes for discipline arose in the amended accusation. So each was a new inspection or a new complaint. These next causes were related to a complaint alleging that petitioner dispensed Schedule II prescriptions without verifying the prescriptions with a physician. Specifically, some of the skilled nursing facilities that petitioner dispensed for were having their nurses take verbal controlled substance prescriptions and then failed to have physicians verify them within 7 days in the case of emergency prescriptions or at all in some cases. So petitioner and their PIC were disciplined for dispensing emergency prescription for controlled substance level 2s without a physician's order or without obtaining verification within 7 days. And then also for just dispensing these prescriptions to patients at skilled nursing facilities without first obtaining a valid electronic or written order from the physician. Finally, in aggravation, petitioners were issued 2 citations in 2016 for exceeding the pharmacist to technician ratio and for failing to prevent the sale of drugs lacking in quality, for taking drugs back from patients at skilled nursing facilities and placing them into containers to be dispensed to other patients. Petitioner's PIC was also issued 2 citations for these issues for a total of 4 citations, but only 2 each to the pharmacy and then the PIC. Now, in their petition, petitioner argues that either the definition of respondent should not include all of the owners and officers of the corporation that owns petitioner, or that term 17, prohibiting additional ownership by those owners and officers, should be eliminated. Petitioner provided a letter from their attorney outlining the lengthy process that this case went through to get to settlement, and alleges that petitioner believed that it was the intent of the settlement that these other owners, i.e. the owners other than the PIC, who is pharmacist Chang, would be allowed to own other pharmacies without issue. This is obviously not what the settlement says, which is why we're here, but this argument also ignores Business and Professions Code sections 4302 and 4307. 4302 states that the board may deny, suspend, or revoke any license where conditions exist in relation to any person who holds 10% or more of the ownership interest that would constitute grounds for disciplinary action against a licensee. 4307 says, in essence, that any person who is an owner of a pharmacy whose license is then revoked or placed on probation shall be prohibited from owning any pharmacy until either the revoked license is reinstated, or if the license is placed on probation, then this prohibition is not to exceed 5 years. It has not yet been 5 years since this license was placed on probation. Now, in support of their petition, petitioner has provided that aforementioned letter from their attorney, along with exhibits A through N, most of which date from prior to the stipulated settlement and therefore have very little probative value here. This packet includes the original accusation, the first amended accusation, a 27-page letter from the attorney discussing settlement as to the first amended accusation. This is dated June 26th of 2018. A motion for continuance from the original hearing scheduled in August of 2018. Then the second amended accusation, a December 6th, 2018, 26-page letter from petitioner's attorney discussing settlement as to the second amended accusation, another copy of the second amended accusation, the supplemental police report regarding the thefts. Oh, and here, Your Honor, I need to make a note on page 167 of the PDF, which is also labeled as Exhibit G, page 55. There are multiple dates of birth and social security numbers for each of the petitioners. I did not notice those when I submitted this petition to the court, so I'd like to ask the court to redact these numbers in their file.
All right, Dr. Park, is there any objection to my making those redactions to the exhibits?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, those redactions will be made.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Then there are diagrams of the floor plan of the pharmacy, photos of the pharmacy, specifically of the new security cameras installed by the pharmacy, revised policies and procedures for controlled substance inventory, photos of some locking cabinets, apparently petitioners now use for their controlled substances, a regulatory compliance review petitioners obtained from a pharmacy consultant dated March 26th of 2018, 96 and a quarter hours of continuing ed done by PIC Chang, 2 photos of the stamper or a similar one used to date stamp the bags of, I hope I don't butcher this, cefazolin, I think, CEFAZOLIN. That was the drug that was given the expiration date of 60 days when it should have been 30. Copies of a blank and then filled out IV defrost log, a revised policy and procedure for handling, storing, and thawing frozen pre-mixed antibiotics, another regulatory compliance review from the same consultant pharmacist dated June 15th of 2018, a 2017 sterile compounding policy and procedure, a 2017 training outline and attendance record for compounding sterile products updates and IV staff, a review form for the same, what appears to be a chart of a monitoring log for various compounded medications from 2012 to 2018. And this was from Eagle Analytics, indicating that some drugs were actually tested for sterility and stability. There's an acknowledgement from staff that they reviewed and understood the revised policy and procedure regarding the handling, storage, and thawing of frozen premixed antibiotics. There is the third amended accusation, an August 5th, 2019, 35-page letter from petitioner's attorney discussing the settlement of the third amended accusation, a page of some notes allegedly made by petitioner's attorney regarding the settlement conference held on August 9th of 2019, then the fourth amended accusation, an email from Deputy Attorney General Helene Rouse, who handled this matter, to petitioner's counsel with a draft copy of the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, an unsigned copy of the stipulation, and then a signed and adopted copy of the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order at issue here. Then a letter from petitioner's counsel dated October 8th, 2020, arguing that 3 of the owners of Partner Healthcare should not be associated with the Partner Healthcare license on the board's license lookup website, Breeze. 2 March 5th, 2021, letters from board staff informing several owners of Partner Healthcare that their applications for new community pharmacy licenses were withdrawn due to their prohibition from the new pharmacy ownership set forth in the stipulation. Then an email from petitioner's counsel to myself regarding the settlement discussions that occurred during the settlement conference. Another copy of the floor plans for the pharmacy and photo of the security implementation, which are, as far as I can tell, identical to the first. So all of these documents that I have just described combined, and then also including the notice of hearing for this petition, as well as the acknowledgement of electronic recording, constitute Exhibit 1 in this matter. So at this time, I would like to enter Exhibit 1.
Okay, the March 4th, 2022 correspondence from Khan Long Tai, spelled KHANH-LONG, last name is THAI, the agreement to electronic recording, and the petition for reduction of penalty, and November 27th, 2021 cover letter will be marked collectively as Exhibit 1. Dr. Park, any objection to 1 for all purposes?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
1 is so admitted. Also, Ms. Jarvis and Dr. Park, I noticed in the page that Ms. Jarvis referenced with the social security numbers and date of birth that there are also cell phone numbers and driver's license numbers. Ms. Jarvis, would you like me to redact those as well?
The driver's license numbers, certainly. I don't know that cell phone numbers need to be redacted, but I'm okay with them being redacted if petitioners so request.
Okay, Dr. Park, any objection to the driver's licenses being redacted?
No, Your Honor, and we would probably prefer to have the cell phone numbers redacted also, Your Honor.
Okay, and no objection to that, Ms. Jarvis?
No.
Okay, so I will add those 2 items to my list of things to redact. All right, sure. Ms. Jarvis, if you have more on your summary or your remaining documents.
Remaining documents. So at this time, I'd like to move on to Exhibit 2. Because the petition packet itself was so lengthy, I separated these documents out for ease of reference. So Exhibit 2 is 8 letters of recommendation, all of which were verified by board staff. I do want to point out, in regards to these letters, it is apparent from the formatting and repetitious phrases that respondent's attorney provided the format for these letters. This does not affect the credibility of the portions that it appears were written by the authors of these letters. But 7 of the 8 letters do have the exact same heading, and all 8 of the letters start with the exact same paragraph. They state, I am writing you today in support of respondent, all caps, Partner Healthcare, named in this accusation case, hyphen, specifically 3 of its corporate shareholders, officers, and directors who are, all caps, not named in the accusation, : those words are identical in each of the 8 letters. 4 of the letters then go on to discuss Dr. Tai, and 4 letters continue on to discuss Dr. Wang. One individual who is employed by the petitioners wrote 2 of the letters, 1 for each of these owners. And it appears that 4 out of the 7 authors appear to be employed by petitioner. Several of the letters state that it is unfair for this decision to be put against these individuals' personal licenses, which evinces a misunderstanding of the discipline itself. None of the owners of Partner Healthcare, except then PIC Chang, have any discipline against their personal pharmacist licenses. One moment, Your Honor. Yeah, so at this time, Exhibit 2 just consists of those 8 letters, and I would like to move Exhibit 2 into evidence.
All right, the letters will be marked collectively as 2. Dr. Park, any objection to 2 for all purposes?
No objection, Your Honor.
2 is so admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I do want to address these personal pharmacist licenses before I move on to Exhibit 3. In my research into this matter, I believe that this is the crux of the misunderstanding that occurred during the settlement process. If you look at the accusations, the First Amended, Second Amended, etc. In the original accusation, only Partner Healthcare Inc. and Henry Chang were named as the respondent pharmacy. PIC Chang was then individually named as a respondent under his own pharmacist license, and then the technician who we believe conducted the thefts was named under his technician license. Then, in the First Amended accusation, the accusation was amended to add each of the owners of Partner Healthcare, including the 3 here today, under the pharmacy license as owners, but then also each of them under their individual pharmacist licenses. So the roster of respondents immediately grew from 3 to 6. That caption, those parties stayed the same in the Second Amended accusation. Then, in the Third Amended accusation, each of the owners remained named under the pharmacy license, but each of their individual pharmacist licenses, except again then PIC Chang, were removed from the caption and no longer named as individual parties under their personal pharmacist licenses. During settlement discussions, it is my belief that Deputy Attorney General Rouse understood that respondents were concerned about their personal pharmacist licenses rather than being as concerned about new ownership of pharmacies. And while respondents may have been concerned about new ownership at that time, they did not realize that while omitting these personal pharmacist license from the accusation would ensure that their personal licenses would not be restricted, they would still be restricted as owners of the disciplined pharmacy. So referring back again to Business and Professions Code 4307, it is a mandate. It says that any owner of a pharmacy that has been disciplined shall be prohibited from ownership. So this is a pretty convoluted issue. I hope that it's clear because all of the owners do have their own personal licenses, but their personal license, it's actually them who are restricted due to their affiliation with Partner Healthcare. So again, if there are questions on that later at the appropriate time, I can try to answer those. So then to identify Exhibit 3, Your Honor, the underlying decision and order in this matter, which I move to admit.
All right, the November 4th, 2019 decision and order, the concomitant stipulated settlement and disciplinary order as to Partner Healthcare Inc. and Fourth Amended accusation are marked collectively as Exhibit 3. Dr. Park, any objection to 3 for all purposes?
No objection.
All right, 3 is so admitted. Ms. Jarvis, anything
Your Honor. Yes, so finally, in all ways, petitioner has been 100% compliant with probation. At this time, they have paid more than half of the costs that were ordered, which is approximately $24,000. They have approximately $21,000 in costs remaining. Petitioner does have a new PIC who has been completely cooperative with the board inspectors. And in all ways that we're aware of, petitioner has been compliant with all of the laws governing pharmacy. And so at this time, I would like to cede the floor to petitioner.
All right, thank you. Dr. Park, just for housekeeping matters, how many witnesses were you intending to call?
Thanks, Your Honor. Today we have 3 witnesses total. The 3 individual petitioners, Dr. Ken Tai, Dr. Ami Wong, Dr. Brian Gardner.
Okay, and do you have any additional documents you wanted to have marked and admitted?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, Dr. Park, if you'd like to call your first witness.
Thanks, Your Honor. Let's see. Petitioners would like to call Dr. Ken Tai.
Okay, Dr. Tai, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you will provide in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You may put your hand down. If I may have you start by spelling your full name for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Carl Tai, but I'm commonly referred to as Ken.
And if you could spell it for the record, please.
My legal name is spelled KHANH-LONG. Last name is Tai, T-H-A-I.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Park, whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, we have, this is Board Member Veal. There's still a lot of echo. I don't know if someone needs to unmute themselves.
Okay, so a common cause of the echo is when someone has 2 sources of audio going. So for instance, if you're calling in by telephone, make sure your computer is muted and your and not only the microphone muted, but the volume on your computer needs to be turned all the way down. Otherwise, your telephone will pick up the sound from your computer, and that's probably what's causing the echo. And then just also a reminder, if you're not currently speaking, if you would please mute your microphone. Right, Dr. Park, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Tai, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Very good. So at the pleasure of Your Honor and the esteemed board members, if it please Your Honor and the board, I would like to present a series of direct examination style questions to make sure that all of the petitioners here have the opportunity to cover all the materials that they would like to cover. Would that be acceptable, Your Honor?
That's fine. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you. Thanks, Your Honor. All right, Dr. Tai, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's see here. So with regards to the Partner Healthcare Inc., which was the named respondent in the accusation, that's located at 2035 South Myrtle Avenue in Monrovia, California. What was and is your current title with regards to the entity?
I'm the CEO of the pharmacy, so I kind of work with, I guess, the team to kind of provide strategic positioning and direction for the pharmacy.
Okay, so you're the Chief Executive Officer. Do you also serve as owner and or director?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. During the time period of the all of the various noted causes for discipline, were you involved in any aspect of the pharmacy's drug security or daily operations?
No.
So between July 2014 through December 2015, or approximately thereabout, which is the time period in question, were you involved in any operations as it related to the stolen controlled substances?
No.
Did you have any decision-making authority as to how the pharmacy's security measures would be implemented?
No.
Did you have any, with regards to the cause for discipline for the time period of August 2015 through July 2017 regarding the non-conforming prescriptions because of the labeling and the storage deficiencies, were you at that time involved in any operational decision-making capacity whatsoever?
No.
And lastly, with regards to the approximately August of 2018 regarding the faulty C2 order fulfillment that was noted in the accusation, during this time, did you have any influence or control or even participation in any aspect of the prescription C2 order fulfillment process in the pharmacy?
No. No.
So could you briefly describe what do you do, if you don't do any of these things, what do you do for Partner Healthcare?
I oversee the kind of company's direction, in terms of, having meetings with the PICs and the staff and directors on, how we're going to, move the company forward and how we're going to continue to market, grow the pharmacy.
Okay. So if it wasn't you that had any involvement or participation or influence or anything having to do with any of the deficiencies, who was responsible in your pharmacy for making sure that all of that who was responsible for allowing all those things to happen in your pharmacy?
Typical operation is, handled by the pharmacist in charge.
And are you referring to your former PIC, Dr. Henry Cheng?
Yes.
Yes. During the time period of 2014 through 2018, which basically covers the time period for all of the alleged violations of law, were you involved in, well, first of all, during that time period, how many pharmacies or other pharmacy operations were you involved in besides Partner Healthcare Pharmacy?
At that time, I think it was, I guess I have to estimate here. I'm assuming probably between, at that time period, 14 to 15 operations I was overseeing and sort of serving as the, I guess, CEO or manager.
So did you say 14 or 15 pharmacies during this time period you served as some sort of a corporate leadership capacity?
Yes.
Okay. And like the functions you performed for Partner, did you also do similar functions for those other 14 or 15 pharmacies as well?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Okay. During this time period, again, during 2014 and 2018, weren't you also involved quite heavily within various pharmacy or pharmacist associational activities as well?
Yes.
Could you speak to what entities or organizations were you involved in, and what were your respective positions therein?
At the time, I was on the board of trustees with CPHA. I believe I was serving as treasurer, which ultimately led into my serving as the president-elect for the California Pharmacists Association. I believe I was also at the time the QSOT, USC University of Southern California QSOT president, and also serving on the board of counselors with the dean at the USC School of Pharmacy. Sorry, can you hear me? Oops.
This is the moderator. Are the counsel and the petitioner in the same room together?
No, we're not.
Okay, so I had muted your counselor because his mic was unmuted while you were speaking and was causing an echo.
Oh, yeah, we're not in the same room. Sorry.
Here, I turn my volume down. Maybe that'll help. Hopefully. So with respect to your position and involvement with the California Pharmacists Association, you said you started out as a board of trustee member and then you worked your way up. Could you go through that one more time? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes, that's correct. I believe at that time period, I was a treasurer on the board of trustees at the California Pharmacists Association. And then I think it also overlapped with my serving as the president-elect.
Aren't you involved quite heavily in schools of pharmacy with regards to entrepreneurship?
Yes, I actually teach the entrepreneurship course at the University of Southern California USC School of Pharmacy, as well as at the Western University School of Pharmacy, as well as a handful of other schools of pharmacy in Southern California.
And with respect to your mentorship and teaching of these up-and-coming pharmacists that graduate from these schools of pharmacy, do you eventually have them at some point give them the opportunity to have themselves be pharmacy owners or have some involvement in pharmacy ownership?
Yes, actually, I get quite a bit of students that are interested in independent practice, community practice. So they unfortunately don't have a lot of opportunities or channels to really get a chance to explore that career option. So as a preceptor, as an adjunct faculty at both sites, usually, these students that are interested, taking the course would usually approach me to, at least if nothing else, get a position, a job, which I usually offer them, and then they'll work through the years. And if they're able to, obviously demonstrate competency and ability and, honestly passion for serving the public and the community, then they usually get promoted to become a staff upon graduation, and then hopefully become a manager. And then from there, they usually, if an opportunity presents itself, then get offered an opportunity to become an owner or a shareholder in the pharmacy, the next pharmacy that we're that we look at if there's an opportunity.
Can you give an approximate number of the number of students that's gone through this process and work with you now in either some sort of a partner or a managerial?
Did you say now, sir? Right now, Tony? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, during that time period and then now.
Okay, probably at least I'd say 18 to 20 that are currently partners or owners, and of course much more in terms of interns and students in rotations.
Let's now talk about the most recent application for a change of ownership that you were denied. Can you briefly talk about that pharmacy? What was your business plans and goals with respect to the pharmacy? That pharmacy for which the license was denied because of the current probation of the pharmacy?
So there was an opportunity to purchase an existing pharmacy that was in Whittier, California. They had been, honestly, alumni at the USC School of Pharmacy, had been there for many years, and they were ready to retire. They approached me, and then I saw it was a good opportunity. And also there was one of our managers, were obviously very excited about going into ownership. And so it was in an area that quite honestly was, servicing a lot of the patients that were from the hospital nearby. So I felt it was a good opportunity, a good pairing for that particular student. And so I decided to work with them to move forward on potentially purchasing that pharmacy.
So you went through the motions, you went through the entire transaction process, signed a purchase and sale agreement, applied for a change of ownership and all that, and then you were denied licensure, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. When you submitted that application for the change of ownership, in your mind, did you believe that it was okay for you to do so?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I also had discussed with you as well to ensure that that we were in the right in terms of our abilities, given the fact that we had had to deal with the probation. So I wanted to make sure that everything was in order and to do it properly.
Yeah. The Deputy Attorney General Jarvis did a very nice job of summarizing kind of like the procedural hurdles, I guess, lack of better characterization. At some point within the accusation, you individually were named as a pharmacist as being subject to the accusation. Isn't that correct?
Oh, yes.
And what did you think about that?
I didn't know what to think about it, quite honestly, and I was honestly even double checking with some of my colleagues and folks that are in pharmacy, and it seemed unusual that I was named as a pharmacist when maybe some of the other organizations I've heard of, I've never personally named the license involved, especially with my capacity with the pharmacy.
And all throughout the negotiation, through the approximately 2-year procedural process from start to finish, from the date that you originally received the accusation to the date where you finally received, entered into a stipulated settlement and got the final decision in order, was it your belief and understanding that you should not be named or prejudiced in any way because of the accusation?
Yes.
Yeah. And because of your ownership and involvement in the 15, 16 plus pharmacies, I'm sure it's grown by now. How many pharmacies? Well, it's grown by now. Is it fair to say that your point of comparison was probably more like the target pharmacy as compared the target pharmacy in the Anders Sternberg case, the presidential case where that pharmacists were charged was subject to accusation, but the corporation and neither the corporation nor any of its corporate officers or shareholders were subject to any disciplinary action or any sanctions to speak of. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So given the fact that you missed out on this one business opportunity, what happened to that pharmacy? What happened to that opportunity? Do you know?
Eventually, well, someone else purchased the pharmacy, but I mean, there's nothing I can do. I had to, of course, comply with what was sent back, which is that I was not had no authority, I guess, to have any further ownerships. So.
If the Board of Pharmacy were to grant your petition to somehow be allowed to take new ownership and get new licenses for other future business opportunities, what would you do immediately?
Well, first of all, I'm very appreciative. I think at the end of the day, I really went into this during the settlement with the understanding, and maybe just my own understanding, that we had sort of took care of what we had done wrong with the probation between the pharmacy as well as the RPIC. And so from my vantage point, I'm just doing what I typically or always have done, which is to kind of look at opportunities to allow young independent pharmacists to come out and be in a platform or a position to be able to go in and serve the community and as an independent pharmacy owner. I also have a lot of pharmacies that are underserved areas, including in Skid Row and community centers, where we work very closely with FQHCs and whatnot for patients in niche areas who, are not, quite honestly, they don't understand the language or the culture of pharmacy in America, and they're adapting and adjusting. And so that's kind of where we come in, and that's what we do. So that probably is what I would love to get back to doing, in all honesty.
So with regards to the specific thing that you're asking the Board of Pharmacy today, can you briefly summarize what that is? What are you asking the Board of Pharmacy today?
I'm simply asking for an opportunity to be able to honestly go back and to do what I've been doing, which is to open pharmacies and be in a position to continue to serve the community and to do what we've been doing. For example, during this past pandemic, the pharmacies that I still own, we were able to vaccinate quite a large constituent. I think we did the numbers, almost 100,000 patients in the community. And it was awesome because we felt we're an integral part of that and able to give back and to do something to get us back on track. And we work with so many different institutions, including the Boys and Girls Club, LA County. And I'm just glad I'm still have that capacity to do that. But of course, if this petition and of course the board allows, I would love to be back in a position where we can continue to do that. To work with the students, put in positions to be in the community, doing good stuff, and then including, being providing, I think right now in a very needed time for pharmacists to be out there to, get us over the hump. I mean, we're the only ones that stayed open during this pandemic. And I think that I don't want to claim credit, but I like to think that a lot of us were responsible for helping us to be in a position where we are now, where we're hopefully close to seeing the end of our current, situation globally.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Dr. Tai. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to open the floor for any questions from the board members or perhaps Your Honor yourself before we move on to the next petitioner, if that pleases the court.
Okay, first let's go ahead and go with Ms. Jarvis to see if she has any questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Tai, is it true that at some point during your ownership with Partner Healthcare that you actually have worked as a staff pharmacist on the floor?
Never.
Not for one day? Okay, thank you. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Right. Dr. Park, is there anything else you wanted to elicit on redirect?
No, Your Honor. I think we're ready for board member participation and questions.
Very good. All right. Next, I'll turn to the board to see if there are any questions for Dr. Tai. First, Mr. President, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Thank you, everyone, for participating and coming to us. I know it's not easy. So I appreciate all of your time, and thank you for all you do and all the services you provide for the community. Just curious about a little bit of process. I am wondering, maybe Dr. Park would have an answer about the process, because usually we see early termination for probation. So I'm curious what the decision was, and if there is a consideration of that potential. Was that a initial thought, or did you decide to do reduction of penalty instead of early termination? I'm curious. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Dr. Park.
Yeah, thank you, President O. I think the thought here was that, you know, for the most part, we entered into this stipulated settlement with both eyes wide open. And I think perhaps a combination of litigation fatigue, it had been 2 years, plus probably a sense of exuberance that, oh, finally we're coming, you know, to see the light at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. And the fact that, you know, quite frankly, if you look at the settlement agreement, it was signed not by Dr. Tai or Ami or Gardner, but rather their former PIC. All of that may have contributed to the fact that perhaps the understanding there was a mismatch. But having said that, you know, we're not here to try to get out of something that we agreed to. We are owning up to everything that we can. And for that reason, procedurally, we're not seeking for an early termination of probation or anything other than the very specific, narrow alteration, in our view, to allow these 3 individuals to be, I guess, affirmatively declared to have it be okay for them to own future pharmacies. And so I guess the thinking was we didn't want to, you know, we respect the current, you know, decision, the final decision order, and we respect the orders, we respect the board's judgment on that. And we're not trying to get away with something or, you know, get out from underneath of something. Where, you know, the respondents here are fully acknowledging and owning up to the process, but for this one element. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, Dr. O, but
It does.
hopefully it will
Thank
help.
you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Park. No, thank you for that. I mean, I think that it really is appreciative to hear that
Dr.
you
O,
are
and
all
Your
owning
Honor,
up.
may I address this point as well?
Sure.
Just because of Business and Professions Code Section 4307, which is A1, which states that if a license is on probation, where an existing license is placed on probation, the prohibition on ownership shall remain in effect for a period not to exceed 5 years. The board and staff has generally not interpreted that to mean that the probation and the prohibition are hand in hand necessarily. The prohibition can run for 5 years, even if, for example, the probation is only issued for 3 years. So an early termination of probation would not necessarily lift this management prohibition pursuant to 4307.
Okay, so that brings to my next question, actually, Attorney General Jarvis, is if we do grant this petition of modifying the term respondent to only include the corporate entity itself and not its owners, managers, officers, administrator, would this be sufficient for the petitioner to be able to own pharmacies? I would hope so, but.
So I believe that the board would have to specifically address that, because if you look at corporate ownership, right, you have, and I'll just use this case as an example, you have these 3 owners who are the owners of Partner Healthcare. So if you restrict the ownership prohibition to only, you know, Partner Healthcare Inc., period, who is that? Is the pharmacy itself going to go buy another pharmacy? No, the owners of the pharmacy are going to be in ownership of another pharmacy. So I don't know that changing the definition of respondent would change that. I think the board is going to have to be very clear about their intent as to what they want the change to accomplish.
Okay. This is very complicated case for sure, needless to say, and thank you all for enduring. I have no further questions at this point, but after hearing some members, I might have a few, but I will pass it on to Your Honor.
Thank you. Madam Vice President, any questions?
Yes, I guess it's not necessarily for the person testifying at this point, because I know we'll have a lot of discussion in closed session, but it's mainly to, I guess, to the respondent is, I understand what you're trying to accomplish, but I have seen, and Mr. Park or Dr. Park may be able to respond too, I've seen that commonly owners are held to the discipline of the pharmacy, whether there are pharmacists or non-pharmacists. It's about the person owner, not the business owner, just as Ms. Jarvis said. So maybe Dr. Park and Dr. Tai can explain to me a little bit more what the purpose of this is, other than trying to avoid the discipline of 5 years.
So I might offer up something, and it sort of ties into the prior comment with regards to procedurally and legally, how do we make this work in the event the board were to grant a petition. You know, a corporate entity is considered a person for the purposes of ownership. So to the comment earlier that was made, well, if not the corporation, then whom? My answer would be, well, it's the corporation. So the corporation as an entity with its own individual tax ID number, with its own recognition by the California Secretary of State's office, that corporate entity we're proposing be the entity and not any of its shareholders, officers, and directors. And I do believe that there is sufficient wiggle room within 4302 and the various code sections that Ms. Jarvis pointed out, to allow the Board of Pharmacy to tailor the petition in a way that the limitation on the prohibition of ownership is limited to just the corporate entity itself without affecting its owners, officers, and directors. So yes, it is true that it is customary that the agency, whenever it seeks a disciplinary action on the individual pharmacist, also does oftentimes also pull in the pharmacy and all of its owners as well. But our position is that the board does have a sufficient discretion to not have it be that end all be all for every single case. By way of stark contrast, if you look at all of the chain drugstore accusations, I've not yet seen, and I could be mistaken, but I have not yet seen a situation where the corporation's shareholders, officers, directors, and managers were subject to any individual disciplinary action, nor were they prohibited from future new licensure. So our position is if certainly, in the case of Dr. Tai, when he has 15 plus pharmacies, I think his situation is more like a corporate officer of a target pharmacy, for example, in the presidential case of the Anders Sturberg case. So that our position is, and I hope I answered your question, Dr. Serpa, but that's our position, is that we do think that there is sufficient room in the code section for the board to craft a petition granting, again, if the board so chooses, to allow for the future sanction on new ownership prohibition to be only limited to the corporate entity itself and none of the officers, owners, and directors.
So just to follow up on that, Dr. Park, I appreciate the answer. I guess I have seen different disciplinary issues brought up regarding future ownership or additional ownerships. Those are usually very much spelled out in the settlement, yes or no, and how many. There's a lot of details in there. Typically, when it's stated as the way it is now, it's saying no future growth. And I guess my concern would be is especially when it's a corporate owner, what's to keep the individual from just opening up many other corporations and sidestepping the disciplinary action?
Well, I suppose then the answer to that would be that's the whole point of naming the individual within the accusation, So if the individual's name appeared in the accusation, it would be known to the world, including the agency, that that individual was prohibited from sidestepping their probation. If you look at the history of the accusations, just the pleading documents themselves, there was a point where all three individual petitioners here in their capacity as pharmacists was also named. And then they were also named not as pharmacists, but as corporate officers. And then they were removed from even that, where the final iteration of the accusation only lists the corporation, the criminal technician, and then the former PIC. So, you know, our goal throughout the entire settlement negotiation process was to prevent any and all prejudice from falling on the shoulders of the three individuals. And so, you know, if the three individuals, you know, did have some culpability on on themselves personally, yes, I 100% agree with you that they should not be, you know, they have no business owning other businesses and expanding the growth of new pharmacies by sidestepping. But the fact that they were removed and there was no individual culpability at any point during the accusation of the pleading, I think that's why we think that it is justified. And we would hope that the board would agree with us that the three, at least just those three individuals, would be excused from any prejudicial future effect specifically related to prohibitions on new ownership.
Thank you. That helps to answer my question. And thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me the latitude to ask these unusual types of questions.
Of course. Thank you. Mr. Patel, any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, any questions? Oops. Ms. Butler, do you have any questions?
I'm sorry, I didn't unmute. I'm sorry about that. Sorry. I didn't have any other questions. I just wanted to make a comment on the fact that from my observation, I have seen where the corporate entity itself and not its owners and associates and partners were named as respondents. And so that I did not see what happened in this particular case, in those cases. That's just my comment, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Ms. Cameron Banks, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. De La Paz?
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. Ken Tai. From 2014 to 2018, can you confirm that you were the CEO?
Yes, I was, sir.
And can you tell me your percentage of ownership as the CEO at that time?
It's 52.5.
52%. And you mentioned that the responsibility of operations lies with the PIC. How big is the corporation and scale of revenues, employees, out of curiosity?
At that time, okay, so I'm going to be honest, it's going to be estimated if that's okay, sir. I don't have all the stuff with me, but I believe at that point in time, we probably had somewhere close to maybe 25 to 30 million in revenue and maybe somewhere close to about 100 employees.
Did you have a COO in your organization, or you relied on the PIC to be your chief operating officer?
Typically, it's the PIC or manager, and then there is a large group of pharmacists that work together with our PIC.
And as the CEO of the corporation, who's responsible for your risk management?
Typically our PIC and the other pharmacists on board.
That includes business continuity, insurance, other business-related activities as it relates to the locations and the corporation?
Yes. Yes.
And at any time, were you informed of the security issues, cameras, lack of, as it related to the physical location in question? Is it one location? And also a follow-up will be, is it only one location for the corporation?
Yes, only one location for the corporation. At that time, we had around 16 to 20 cameras. And of course, apparently it was not significant enough because they obviously knew the angles of the cameras, in which I'm assuming this occurred. So, but yeah, I mean, they did, of course, let me know what's going on. So.
And has anything changed since this incident as it relates to your engagement directly with the operations side to ensure that this does not reoccur?
Yeah, so since that time they've put forth quite an extensive list, and I think it's on the exhibits of changes, including obviously everything is locked up. Obviously, we have I think like I don't know almost 30 cameras now, which is not a huge. I mean, it's about 8,000 square foot warehouse, but have over 20 plus 30 cameras now. We have also an RX Safe machine that we just bought. We bought increased obviously security measures for like perpetual inventory for almost every product that's there now. There's been quite a substantial amount of change, including we have a consultant that comes in to, a third-party consultant that comes in to give us a full report on what needs to be conducted on the changes, and we of course did all that. And now our pharmacist in charge, of course, regularly reports to us to make sure that all those safety measures are in place and that we're obviously 100% compliant with everything. And from what I gather from the inspections that are being performed regularly in our pharmacy, that's been really good. Of course, we're always a work in progress. We're always looking to improve on that. But as it stands right now, at least subsequent to everything that's happened, it's been I think pretty good.
And from 2014 to 18, how many other corporations were you an owner of or running as CEO?
Well, I can't I can't have any more, right? We just continue what we're doing as kind of managing and overseeing.
Now, during the time from 2014 to 2018, you were the CEO of only one corporation?
Oh, no. At that time, I honestly had to check back in terms of how many, but it was about 13 to 14, maybe 14, 15 locations. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly. I'd have to go back and check.
And each location was its own entity, its own corporation?
Yeah.
And can you just roughly tell me if you were the majority shareholder of those corporations as well?
I'd say majority, yeah. Majority of them are yes. I'd have to go through because they're kind of different.
And you operate
because there's
and all of them were operated in the same exact method as this one corporation in question?
High level, yes, but of course, they're all slightly different. Some are retail, some were specialty, some were infusion. Slightly different, but overall, a similar kind of thought process in terms of oversight and working with my managers and whatnot, and making sure that we, try to stay as compliant as we can. I mean, it's, obviously we're not perfect, so we're always trying to learn and improve to make sure that we protect the patients that we serve, as well as obviously the staff and the team that we're working with. So.
Okay, thank you. No further questions for me.
Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you. Mr. Sanchez, any questions? Ooh, Mr. Sanchez, you're currently muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tebow, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Dr. Tai. Thank you for your testimony today and for all the work you're doing in the community. I just wanted to ask, were there any lessons that you took from this experience that you have then applied broadly across all of the pharmacies that you own, policies and procedures, audits, some kind of process that you've implemented from this?
That is I mean, I can't tell you. It's completely changed our company, quite honestly. I mean, I've having worked in the community many years ago and was very, kind of all we honestly didn't have as much of these problems. And so, we were much more trusting of your staff and your employees, and it was like a family. I mean, that's how I, started, many years ago as an independent owner. And in all honesty, this completely affected us in many ways, because obviously the person that was named was someone that we had worked with. He was a grad intern that we brought in and it kind of brought up from the like a baby stage, and we had worked with him for a long time. And as the company grew, obviously the trust level grew. We're working with him. Of course, he obviously understood the company very well, all the angles of the cameras. And I think that's how he was able to kind of get to us. And I think it was, it affected us, because these are people that we kind of grew the company together with. So from that vantage point, we really needed more professional help, I think, because that's not something that we kind of understood as a pharmacist. And so our consultant was very helpful in terms of navigating and saying, hey, you got to increase because there's a couple of blind spots, right? And then so that came from 16 to now, I don't know, 20, I think it was 25, 26 cameras that we had implemented. We locked everything up, like not just C2s, which were locked up. We locked everything, even things were non-controlled that was even remotely possibly could be abused. We locked it up, and we have like 3 people now double checking orders, and 3 people now double checking our trash bags, because that's essentially how this was happened. Is they threw the trash out every day, and they threw a bottle or 2 every day. And when you have 100+ staff, it's kind of difficult to monitor every trash bag that's in that pharmacy and every person that's throwing it out. We, of course, completely changed how we even allow people to come to work. I mean, they have to only have their lockers separated in a different area. They, most of the time, cannot bring a certain size bag. I mean, there's so many things that's been implemented that's completely changed how we do business. I'm gonna be honest, it's made it very impersonal for me, because even though our company has grown, it's always been very family oriented. Now it's been very corporate. It's almost like, hey, you come in, you got to do this, this, and this, and you can't even sit in this area because of this and that. And I think it's tough, but the reality is that this is what we had to do. I think we grew a lot from this experience. I really felt that it was a good thing. I mean, that's how I think, as Dr. Tony Park had talked about earlier, we're not asking for a reduction. We understand, this was something that's happened, and we have to pay for our mistakes. But I do feel that, that at least personally, I think that we're a positive kind of contributor to the community that we service, and so I just want to be in a position where we continue to do that. I think that's kind of the ask, and I'm hoping it's not too much of an ask. And I'll be upfront; it was very. I mean, why would I apply for another board license under the assumption that I can't do that? I mean, that was a whole deal. I had to go through lawyers, everything. It takes months to even make that happen, and then to find out that, oh, wait a minute, you're not in a position to be able to do this. I was kind of shocked. I think the whole team was shocked, and I understand. I maybe I interpreted it wrong. I didn't understand. I get it, but that's why I'm here now. To hopefully we can write that and put us in a position where we can continue doing what we're doing. I really feel that there's so much more I can continue to contribute and give. I just want to be in a position where I can do that. And that's kind of it.
Thank you, Dr. Tai.
No, thank you.
All right, Ms. Veal, any questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I do. I kind of want to ask some questions that came out of the questions from Mr. De La Paz and Dr. Tebow. So first off, Dr. Tai, you said, sounds like you said we really trusted this guy, and so I'm thinking you were talking about the PIC, Henry Chang, when you said that you really trusted him and you were disappointed in how this all came out, and that it sounds like you feel like he was the cause. I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Oh, I think that that's not actually what I meant. Actually, what I meant was more that that of course. I mean, I think I'm disappointed in just everything in general, how this transpired, but more so from the standpoint of the person that actually did did what he did in terms of stealing from us, which is Nestor Sanchez, because again, he was an intern that we brought up from the beginning. He worked for us for 4 or 5 years. So I was a little disappointed that, he would do this, right, to us when we consider it almost as family. So I think that part, and of course, I will say this, I mean, of course, there's a little bit of disappointment on everybody as a whole, because we all have to take some level of responsibility given what has happened, and that's also the reason why we've said that, hey, as a company, we feel that we're not here to petition ending or shortening of the termination of the probation. We're just talking about strictly ownership beyond this particular company, Partner Healthcare.
So Nestor, because that's why I was thinking he was the PICs, because you called him a graduate intern, now you just called him an intern, but it looks like he's a technician.
Yeah, Nestor is
an intern, and then
I'm sorry, Nestor was. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Or how did that exactly happen?
I apologize. Nestor was a technician extern when we hired him. Extern. I apologize. I must have missaid that. But he would, when we hired him from school, and then of course he became he continued to be a technician in our pharmacy.
Okay, and I guess can you define what's an extern?
A technician that was in school that was still rotating.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And when you, Mr. De La Paz, you said something about how many people. So there's 100. So this one entity, Partner Healthcare, owns the one pharmacy, and in that one pharmacy, you had approximately 100 employees. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And let's see. And you mentioned that you were an independent owner. So I'm assuming you visited this pharmacy.
I'm sorry, what is the question, ma'am?
You indicated that you are an independent owner, and I was asking, at some point you visited this pharmacy, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Like, how often did you visit the pharmacy?
We'll probably have board meetings once a month, or somebody stop by to say hi.
Okay. And I guess while you were there, you never noticed the lack of security or the way that they were handling control items.
Well, we have always locked up all the controls. We've had over, like I said, 16 cameras. We had, most of the pharmacists in very strategic positions. That's why I like I said, he was there for a long time. He knew the operations very well. This is a 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 operation. So, if you ever been to the pharmacy, you'll see even though there's a lot of people, it's very organized. It's not chaotic. And so everything looked good from a high level to me.
And I guess why I'm confused is when Miss Jarvis did her opening, she actually said that the reason this happened was that there were no security measures in place. And I thought I heard her say there actually were no cameras or locked cabinets.
That is 100% incorrect. As a matter of fact, I would question if no offense, but if she's ever been to our pharmacy.
I'm not sure if you visited your pharmacy in 2014 or not.
Yeah, so I absolutely would refute that, because that's not true. And as a matter of fact, you'll find in all exhibits that there was a pretty, I mean, if you read the Board of Pharmacy Professions and Code, we've always gone above and beyond that. I mean, was it enough? Obviously, it was not. And of course, that is where we, obviously take responsibility in accepting the probation terms. But I would absolutely 100% disagree that, number one, there was no security. I mean, 16 cameras is probably more than most pharmacies that I am aware of. And locked up boxes and everything else were all in place.
All right, and so you have all of these, sounds like at the time you had like about 18 different corporations that were 18 different pharmacies. And do they all funnel up to a holding company? And you're the CEO of the holding company, or are you literally the CEO of these? And I'm just remember about, you said 16, 18. Are you the CEO of these all 18?
Yeah, at the time, well, I mean, honestly, it was, I'm
yeah, let's talk about it at the time.
Yeah, 13, 14 pharmacies, something like that. And then I believe that that yeah, I mean there's no holding company, so all I mean I mean we're in many ways just just it's an individual entity per pharmacy, because again we bring in usually young entrepreneurs, and so they will become part shareholders or owners of the operation.
And so Mr. Chang, would he have considered himself reporting up to you? I understand he was the PIC of the PIC, but was he accountable to you?
Well, Dr. Chang is a pharmacist as well, along with myself and some of the other folks that were in the petition. And so we all work together on board as a board of director.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand the organizational structure. So he's the PIC, but there's multiple people that are involved in this pharmacy, and you have the title of CEO. And so normally that would mean the PIC/manager, I think you also call them, normally they would report up to like the CEO.
Yeah, so I guess on certain matters, you can say that he either report up to me or we report to the board as a whole, and the board usually consists of the four of us. So he reports to the board, and similar to myself as a CEO of the company. So, and I don't know if you know, but Dr. Chang is also a fellow owner, a shareholder of Partner Healthcare as well.
I mean, I assumed I probably should have asked that. Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because that was the assumption I made. At the time he was, right? And he no longer is.
No, he still is. He still is. He's just no longer.
He's not the PIC.
He's not the PIC anymore, yeah.
Okay.
Essentially, I mean, I don't believe, given what had transpired, that it made sense to continue him as the PIC.
Right. And I guess through all this, it sounds like you've made like this has been a learning experience. Have you considered having a compliance officer, especially because you have so many of these pharmacies? It seems like you might want to have a compliance person as a result of what happened in this one location. Well, you went on mute again.
As a matter of fact, you're 100% correct. We do have a compliance officer now that visits every store, goes through all the regs, everything from state, city, board, DEA, you name it. That list is pretty substantial. I mean, I think it's probably, to be fair, probably worse than any audit that you can have when they come into each pharmacy, just because of what we've learned from this past experience.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answers to my questions. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Weiss, any questions?
Nothing to say, Your Honor, except for thank you, Dr. Tai, for appearing and testifying for the board today.
All right, thank you. I believe we've gone through all the board members, but I'll ask as a whole, are there any other board members who have, or any board members who have thought of any subsequent questions for Dr. Tai? All right, hearing none. Dr. Tai, you're excused as a witness. Thank you for your testimony. Dr. Park, if you would like to call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next, I'd like to call Dr. Brian Gardner. And in the interest of time, I promise, Your Honor, these next two will be much shorter.
Thank you. Dr. Gardner, if I could have you, raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you will provide in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may put your hand down. If I could have you start by stating and spelling your full name for the record, please.
Yeah, Brian Gardner, BrianGarner.
Thank you. Excuse me, Dr. Park, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Your Honor. Dr. Gardner, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Gardner, could you please describe your involvement during the 2014-2018 period, as well as currently with regard to Partner Healthcare?
I'm a board director as well as shareholder.
Back in 2014 through 2018, were you involved in any aspect of the pharmacy's security, or the daily operations or the prescription processing process?
No.
Have you at any time worked as a pharmacist at the Partner Healthcare Pharmacy during this time period?
No, I've never been on payroll at all with the pharmacy.
So as how often do you go to the pharmacy, or did you go to the pharmacy during this time period between 2014 and 2018?
Well, the frequency would be various depending on what was happening, but I would say on average, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, every month or every other month, depending on what the board meetings were doing, whether it was a virtual board meeting or whether it was an in-person board meeting. It depended on what was going on.
Okay. So would you say that it's a fair characterization to describe your level of touch with this pharmacy as being just very minimal?
Extremely minimal.
So so if not this, what is your day job, Dr. Gardner?
Oh, I'm owner PIC of an independent pharmacy out in Claremont, California.
And this pharmacy in Claremont, California, is it related at all directly or indirectly with Partner Healthcare?
No, other than I am the owner of this other pharmacy and I'm also a shareholder of Partner Healthcare. That's the only involvement.
Okay. And so to reiterate, during this time period of 2014 to 2018, you had absolutely no involvement whatsoever in any aspect of any of the allegations charged in the accusation?
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about your application that was denied by the Board of Pharmacy. Could you describe what city or location this application was for which you were denied?
Yeah, Montclair, California, out in San Bernardino County. It was a new startup venture that I was pursuing.
And what was your plan for this pharmacy if you were to receive licensure as a new startup pharmacy?
Well, the idea was to expand out in the San Bernardino area where there's typically less pharmacy operations currently, and of course, to expand out there, targeting areas of need in the local community.
By areas of needs, could you be more specific? What exact areas of needs are you referring to that you wanted to address?
Well, I mean, there's a variety of different skilled nursing facilities, housing districts, low housing districts, and hospitals, small hospitals out in the Montclair area that would be an area that I found needed pharmacy, more community-oriented local pharmacy rather than chain.
And so once you received the denial from the licensing division of the Board of Pharmacy, what happened to that area? Do you know?
It's still vacant. The space never rented and it just stayed vacant.
So if the board were to grant the petition and allow you to become an owner of a new licensed premises, what's the very first thing that you would consider doing?
Well, I would continue looking back at that area to see where it stands as far as did anybody else come into that area? Is there any other pending applications and that sort of thing? And if not, I would probably continue to pursue the opportunity that I was looking at a couple of years ago.
So, so in conclusion, what is it, Dr. Gardner, specifically that you are asking the Board of Pharmacy to?
I'll just simply remove the clause that restricts my ability to own additional pharmacies moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you, Dr. Park. Ms. Jarvis, cross-examination.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Gardner, really just one question, the same as for Dr. Tai. Have you ever worked at Partner Healthcare as a staff pharmacist?
No.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you are now.
Yeah, now we can hear you. You kind of got cut off.
Okay, I'll just repeat it then. Dr. Gardner, have you ever worked at Partner Healthcare as a pharmacist, even for one shift?
No. No.
Thank you. No other questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Dr. Park, anything further on redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. I will turn it over to questions by the board. First, Mr. President, any questions?
No further questions at this point, Your Honor.
Thank you. Madam Vice President, any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Patel, any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cameron Banks, any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. De La Paz, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. For Dr. Gardner, can you tell me the percentage of ownership you had in Partner Healthcare?
Yeah, 32.5.
And how did you become a board member?
Well, we looked at an opportunity to open up a pharmacy back in 2009, and with my knowledge of opening pharmacies and my abilities in that area, I joined the group and we did it.
And from your visits to Partner Healthcare, can you confirm that there were cameras there? And I believe there was 16 cameras that were described.
Can I confirm that the cameras were there? I have no idea. I never saw the cameras myself personally because I didn't go and visit them.
And now, if I heard correctly, just for clarification, it was mentioned that a site visit was conducted almost on a quarterly basis, 4 times a year?
Well, not necessarily a site visit. I would go to the pharmacy, to the boardroom to meet with the other directors.
Given your
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, continue.
No, I was going to say, as far as the pharmacy, I would, the only entry, in through the pharmacy would be to walk through the pharmacy, to go to the boardroom, have the meeting, and maybe walk out through the pharmacy. But I didn't, specifically go looking at all the cameras.
And did you ever witness controlled substances not being locked up?
And I didn't witness any of the operations as far as the, controlled substances or anything.
What did, from a dollar figure, your 32.5% stake in the company equate to?
What did it equate to? I don't know
What was
offhand.
your investment? The investment.
Originally. Oh, back in 2009?
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember. If the original investment was 200,000, then mine would have been 32.5 of that. I don't remember the exact initial investment.
And at any stage when you were looking to invest $200,000, did you walk through the facility, or just to ensure that your investment was safe, with your experience, take a look around and see if there was anything out of place?
Yeah, so this pharmacy has grown and relocated multiple times. And, in the very beginning, yes, I was involved in, that concept as far as, looking at what my investment was going toward. Once it was up and running and operational, I did not pay much attention to it. It was more of a silent investment at that point.
In other words, what do you have to?
I heard someone else. Is there another comment? No. Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sanchez, any questions?
Yeah, no questions.
Thank you. Dr. Tebow, any questions?
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Veal, any questions?
Yeah, I think just one or two. Dr. Gardner, you mentioned that you got involved with Partner Healthcare because you were considered, I think you said actually an expert in starting up pharmacies. Did I hear that right?
Well, yeah, many years ago, I was the first of our group to open up a pharmacy, and then partnered with Dr. Tai and others throughout the years to, help either acquire or open up pharmacies. So I just have, a working knowledge of the application process and what is needed to open up a pharmacy and get it operational.
Okay. And I guess when I think of opening up a pharmacy, that also includes the bench goes here, the shelves go back there. Is that what you do, or are you more the paperwork guy?
Well, I mean, I have people that I, I defer to for, some of the initial, physical, this is where this goes, this is where that goes. I'm more of the contract and the paperwork aspect.
Okay. And so you said that Partner Healthcare had grown and had moved locations from the original 2009 when you were involved. And when this was all coming down in 2014 to 18, it was in a new facility, it was in a different facility than it had been back in 2009.
Correct.
And as it changed facilities, you didn't need to lean on people to look at the facility itself and the, how it was set up anymore?
No, I had little, I'd say, action in that involvement at all.
Okay. All right, those are my questions. Thank you for your answers.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss, any questions?
Yes, just a few. Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Dr. Gardner. Thank you for appearing before the board today. You said that you attempted to purchase a pharmacy and you were denied because of your prohibition, correct?
Well, not purchased. Start up a new store.
Start up a new store. And when was that?
Yeah. Well, it was between 2020 and 2021.
And Dr. Tai, he also tried to either start up a new store or purchase a new store. So was your action before or after his? And I'm just confused how you both attempted to do this without knowing you were ineligible.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the timeline is on his because I wasn't even involved in that other project that he was doing. So I don't know what the timeline on whether his was first or mine was first. It was completely independent. I didn't even find out about his until he got his letter stating that it was withdrawn, and then I got my letter stating mine was withdrawn, and I was a little surprised. That's when I found out about his. Prior to that, I didn't even know about his.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was trying to figure out is with one was withdrawn or you were not allowed to go forward with the purchase or startup of a new business. You think you would all end up connecting with each other, finding out that this prohibition is in effect. Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, I believe we've gone through the whole board, but I'll check to see if any board members have thought of any subsequent questions. Any further questions by the board? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Gardner. You're excused as a witness. And Dr. Park, if you'd like to call your final witness.
Thanks, Your Honor. I'd like to call Dr. Ami Huang, please.
Hello.
And Dr. Wong, if you would raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will provide, that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Sorry about that. If you may put your hand down. If you could start by stating and spelling your full name, please.
My name is Ami Huang, AMMIE HWANG.
Thank you. Dr. Park, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Huang, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
And are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So Dr. Huang, for the relevant time period of 2014 through 2018, could you please describe what your title and roles were within Partner Healthcare Pharmacy?
I was the CFO and also the board director.
Could you describe your daily involvement with Partner Healthcare? Like what would you do on a daily basis if you were there on a daily basis at all?
I will be in charge of the HR, the payrolls, account management, and client relationships.
Did you in fact go to the pharmacy every day or thereabouts during this time period?
I'll be in the pharmacy average 3 to 4 days a week, but I was absent during my pregnancy in February 2015 to June 2015 when I had my third child.
And while you were working at Partner Healthcare as HR manager, as payroll, and I think you said, were you the bill payer? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, I was bill payer and I was also a client relationships manager.
Client manager. Did you have any involvement with the pharmacy's security or the pharmacy daily operational compliance or the pharmacy's manner in which it processed controlled substance prescription orders?
No.
Who made those decisions?
It will be Henry Chang, who was a PIC at that time.
And you said that you worked in the pharmacy a couple of days a week. What was that again? 3 or 4?
I was in the pharmacy in my office 3 to like 4 times days of the week.
Okay. After PIC Chang stepped down from being the PIC, didn't you step up to be the PIC and his replacement after that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And can you describe about what time or how long did you serve as a PIC?
I started as a PIC December 31st of 2019 to June 7th of 2021. It's about a year and 6 months.
Okay. And so obviously you since you were the PIC, obviously you would work at the pharmacy every now and again, correct?
Yeah, of course.
At the very least, okay. And during your time period, were you, while you were the PIC, were you the one to make sure that all of the probation terms were being followed and complied with?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So have you applied to be a pharmacy owner in another pharmacy?
No, I have not.
Do you want to have the ability to own other pharmacies?
Yes, it's been ever since I graduated from pharmacy school, I specialized in geriatric residency, and it's been my life dream to help the community and elders in our community. That's why I did the study. And during the COVID time, I saw that there's not a lot of need in the Korean community for elders who needed like translation, vaccination, and had a lot of questions that they couldn't really walk to the pharmacy anymore, but they needed help. But at that time, I wanted to move to the pharmacy Korean community in K-Town, but I knew that I couldn't because of what happened to Ken and Brian's situation. So.
And when you say what happened to Ken and Brian,
they were denied the application.
Yeah, they were not able to. Okay, got it. So, so you've never, do you hold any other ownerships in any other pharmacies besides Partner Healthcare?
Yes, I have one pharmacy in Van Nuys.
Okay. And does that pharmacy deal with any aspect of the elderly Korean community at all?
No, not in Van Nuys.
So would you say, that you aspire to sort of fulfill this unfulfilled dream? Is that a good characterization?
Yes.
Yeah. So if the Board of Pharmacy were to grant the petition and allow you to own a pharmacy, what's the very first thing you would do?
I'll be in Koreatown looking for a pharmacy. And also, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Dr. Huang.
Yeah. And because I couldn't own the pharmacy, I've been working with adult daycare in Korean communities, and I've been going out there to give them CEs and whatnot. Not in COVID, but before COVID, after COVID when we were allowed to go back, and it's been I've been wanting I didn't know about it, but now I really want to be involved and own a pharmacy in Koreatown, and that's why I'm here.
Would this new pharmacy in Koreatown would you be 100% owner? Is that your goal and aspiration?
I hope so. Yes.
Okay. I hope so. Okay. So I guess in conclusion, what specific thing are you asking for the Board of Pharmacy here today?
Grant. I want the Board of Pharmacy to grant me to own a pharmacy, have pharmacy ownership.
Thank you, Dr. Huang. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Dr. Park. Ms. Jarvis, cross-examination.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Wong, prior to becoming PIC of Partner Healthcare, did you work as a staff pharmacist at any point?
I'll be covering them for lunch hours or call outs for the pharmacist, and I'll be working to cover the call outs.
And then what is your ownership interest in Partner Healthcare?
I have 0 ownership.
What was your ownership prior to when this was all going on?
I had never had ownership at Partner.
What is your position then?
I am the CFO corporation, and also a board director member of the director.
I'm sorry, so you're a CFO and a member of the board?
Yes.
But you've never had any financial ownership interest in it?
Zero.
How long was the time period where you would cover pharmacists for lunches or call outs?
If lunch cover will be like 1 hour. But if there was a call out, I'll be, covering maybe once or twice a month if there's call out.
And how long of a time period? Like how many years did you do that?
I've been with partners since 2010. And during that time, I'll be covering, like I said.
And then once you became PIC, were you working there more than the 3 or 4 times a week that you had mentioned earlier?
When I became PIC, yes, I was more in the front. I was involved in the pharmacy, and I'll be highly involved with daily operation.
Thank you. No other questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Park, anything further on redirect?
Nothing further.
All right, thank you. I'll turn it to the board to see if there's any questions. First, Mr. President, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Madam Vice President?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Patel, any questions?
No further questions. Thanks.
Ms. Butler, any questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Cameron Banks, any questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. De La Paz, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Can you confirm what I heard? Your percentage ownership was 0?
This is Ami.
Yes.
Yes, I have a 0 ownership of the partner.
Can you name the 4 board members for me?
It's Kang Long Tai, Brian Gardner, Henry Chang, and myself, Ami Huang.
Okay. And can you describe to me or name who managed the facility, the physical facility?
The pharmacy itself?
Yeah, the building, something went wrong with the facility?
It'll be mainly Henry Chang. And if I need to contact the building owner because the maintenance of the building, I will contact the property manager. Is that your question? I wasn't sure.
That's fine. In your time there, did you see surveillance systems, cameras in the facility?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, were the controlled substances properly locked up?
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions from Your Honor? I believe you might be muted, Your Honor.
Oops, thank you. Sorry. Dr. Tebow, any questions?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fiel, any questions?
Yes, I just wanted to, I have 2 questions. The first one is, since you seem quite driven to possibly opening up a geriatric pharmacy in Koreatown, which I think sounds very excellent, did you ever consider giving up the titles you had at Partner Healthcare so that would qualify you to potentially open one of those a pharmacy?
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? I didn't hear you.
Yes, since it sounds like the reason you could not open the pharmacy in Koreatown that you wanted to was because you are board of director member and and the CFO at Partner Healthcare. So did you ever consider possibly giving up the titles and maybe doing a slight change in position at Partner Healthcare so that you could open up your own pharmacy?
Oh, yes. Currently, I was a PIC as of June 7, 2021. And as of December of 2021, I am no longer like working at Partner inside the pharmacy, but I have the title of the CFO and director and currently overseeing their financials side of it, aspect of it. And I believe like having that even giving up the title would not allow me to have ownership of the pharmacy. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm not an expert either. I was just reading the decision in order, and it said, board member and officer. So it seems like if you weren't those, then maybe you would. But we're pharmacists, not lawyers, so that's for Tony Park and others to figure out.
Yes.
So controlled substances, Mr. De La Paz, you indicated that you had noticed that the controlled substances were locked up, and it sounds like maybe there was cameras too.
Yes.
Were you referring to that time period when you were PIC, or were you referring to the time period prior? I think you said you've been there since 2010. Did you see that significant change from things being locked and cameras to being even more locked and more cameras?
So during the time period in question, we did have 10 plus cameras in the pharmacy, and we did lock up all the C2s in the pharmacy as required. After the incident, what we did was we added 60 more high definition cameras in addition to existing cameras. So we had about 25 to 30 cameras in the pharmacy, which is 8,000 square feet of pharmacy. And we locked up all the C3 through C5 lockup, and then we purchased big machine that is RX safe machine where only the pharmacist could load and unload all the control medications.
Okay.
So those are the significant measures that we implemented, and only the pharmacist could order all controls or receive all controls, and 2 different pharmacists can do so, ordering and receiving to double check. So we implement all those changes.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've gone through the board, but I'll check to see if any members have thought of any subsequent questions.
Sorry, Judge. Ricardo Sanchez. I think you hit me on it, but I had no questions.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Any other questions from the board? All right, hearing none. Dr. Wong, thank you very much. You're excused as a witness. Dr. Park, anything further by way of evidence?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And closing arguments, Ms. Jarvis?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I just do want to be clear about Business and Professions Code Section 4307 and how that does and does not affect the ownership prohibition that we're talking about here. And I also want to confirm that Dr. Wong, as a manager and officer of the board, is included by 4307 and by the term in the stipulation. I've been referring to ownership throughout, but manager and officer is included in both the statute and in the stipulation. So 4307 and the stipulation are, work together in that they have essentially the same prohibitions, but they are separate. So under 4307, it is required that the owner or manager, etc., has knowledge of or knowingly participated in the acts leading to discipline. And so in order to get what we would call for shorthand, essentially a 4307 prohibition order, you would have to show those two things or one of those two things. But that's one reason that the definition of respondent in the settlement and then term 17, no new ownership, is so important to have in the stipulation, because the owners of the pharmacy are then agreeing to those prohibitions and accepting responsibility for the pharmacy's actions without going through the process of a hearing and without going through the process of essentially proving up that each of the owners and managers did have knowledge of or knowingly participated in. So now under 4307, the board certainly, has the authority to define the prohibition, which says that it shall remain in effect for a period not to exceed 5 years, but it does not have a minimum time period. So the board could define that prohibition in this case and say it'll last approximately 2.5 years. The prohibition is hereby lifted, and that the individuals can apply for the new pharmacy. But that takes care of 4307. There are still the two terms in the probation of the no new ownership and the definition of respondents that would also have to be addressed. And I really want the board to think about the public policy purpose behind this law and behind these terms in the stipulation. The idea is to require owners of pharmacies to be active owners, to ensure that their pharmacies are following the laws governing pharmacy, and to not allow them to simply sit back, let one owner commit the bad acts, and then wash their hands of it and move on to another pharmacy when the dust settles. If an owner, absentee or otherwise, can simply open a new pharmacy the day after the first one is disciplined, then what is the purpose of the discipline? In this case, we put Partner Healthcare on probation, so the owners can just open new pharmacies, maybe transfer their assets or even close Partner Healthcare, and then just continue doing business with their new pharmacies as usual, and the board no longer has any authority or jurisdiction over them. So I'm not going to make a recommendation on this petition here today, because I do believe that these are policy issues for the board members to grapple with, to discuss, and to come up with a determination in regards to this particular case and how it fits into these policy issues. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Park, your closing argument?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think the petitioners here, I won't add to anything that they've stated. I think their testimony speaks for itself, and that each of the three individuals, actually, let me take a step back. I think I 100% agree with Ms. Jarvis in the sense that I agree that independent pharmacy ownership does incur some little bit more responsibility on the owners, especially if they're a substantial owner of the pharmacy. And I do agree with the concern and the policy. There's no doubt that there are policy implications in this petition hearing today, in the sense that, yes, the Board of Pharmacy needs to make sure that, as Ms. Jarvis accurately stated, that bad actors don't get the benefit of essentially sitting by the sidelines and waiting for the dust settles and then basically abscond to commit more bad acts. But I think the testimony, I would hope that the testimony offered here today by the three petitioners has given the board a clear sense that they are not bad actors. None of them have any negative reputation, nor acts, nor enforcement action to speak of. And as in the case, especially with Dr. Tai, he is an exemplary pharmacist owner by any measure, save for the fact that perhaps he decided to be the top dog of a very large operation of, at the time, 100 thereabouts employees. And perhaps maybe he has, maybe one too many finger and too many buckets at the same time in terms of juggling all the ownership responsibilities. But I do not think that by any stretch anybody could characterize him as anything other than exemplary role model for current and future generations of pharmacists. And the same could be said for the two other petitioners, Dr. Gardner and Dr. Huang. They have very noble aspirations, and there's nothing in their prior acts that would suggest otherwise. And so, yes, this is probably not going to be a little bit of at the very least, it will draw some pretty perhaps much needed discussion within the board. But I would hope that the board would fashion some sort of workaround. And I think Ms. Jarvis gave some really wonderful roadmaps to potentially, food for thought for the board. That eventually that the board would allow these three individuals to advance their further, personal aspirations to contribute and add positivity within the world of with the pharmacy in California. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. So that concludes this hearing. As the parties or as counsel are aware, the board will deliberate in closed session over this matter after hearing the remaining petitions on the agenda. So no decision will be issued today, but rather one will be issued later on by mail. All right, so with that, that concludes the hearing, and we're off the record in this matter. And Mr. President, did the board wish to take a break at this time or to proceed directly into the next matter?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think we're at a little bit of awkward timing. It's 11:40, so if members are okay, maybe we'll take a little earlier lunch, because I presume that the next hearing will not be done in like 30 minutes. So, where are we? Are we good to take lunch now, or do you want to go for one more before?
Lunch now will work.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Is that okay, Your Honor? We'll do
That
lunch.
is fine, whatever the pleasure of the board is.
All right. So we'll take a lunch, and we'll be back at 12:45, if that's okay.
Thanks.
Very
Okay,
good. Thank
and
you.
then also, Tricia, if you could make sure our next petitioners are all ready with their counsel, I would appreciate it. Sorry to take your lunchtime away from you, but if you could just make sure that they're all ready.
All right, I will check
Thank
that
you,
out.
Tricia.
Uh-huh.
All right, see you guys later.